So there's a warning for this course, and the warning is there is no overnight success. It takes hard work, determination, and a thirst for learning and the ability to trip over, dust yourself off, and carry on again. And maybe again. Think of it more as a project. There is a start, a middle, and an end. But these are all moving targets. The start may take longer, and the middle and the end may seem a long way off. Ask yourself, what are my goals? What motivates me? Is it money? Is it the satisfaction of seeing your cards in shops that you want? Do you genuinely want to put a smile on people's faces with your witty quips about lockdown? One thing that I think I'll say now is that most of this is focused on greeting cards. I have background knowledge of 3D licensing for things like this, which are cushions and other types of apparel, but today we'll predominantly focusing on 2D, which are, when I say 2D, here's my props, are things like this. This isn't my work, by the way, but this is a greeting card. So that's what we'll be doing. So it's important to list your goals. It's a sort of bit of a business plan, really, a sort of roadmap. When you feel that you're not getting anywhere, you can look at it, and your goal should be stuck on the wall somewhere so that you can, most days, look at them. So you can see it, and then you know what you've done and where you've got to go. Every day is a small step in the direction that you want to go in. Remember, there are no shortcuts, no Insta famous accounts overnight, and lots of dead ends. These are what take the time, the money, and the effort. Believe you me, I have made many mistakes, and I still make mistakes now. I now know not to print £35,000 worth of greeting cards unless you get it in writing that the guy is going to pay you on delivery. Yes, that did actually happen. I managed to sell them separately, but that's one lesson you won't forget. But if I tell you the mistakes that I've made, it will hopefully save you a load of time and money and effort, and maybe you can then help somebody else too. So let's get into greeting cards. I love it, but what is it? So you've got the best cards in the world, or have you? Cards are all about visual communication, and as illustrators and designers, we should know a thing or two about that. The UK greeting card industry is worth a staggering £1.7 billion a year. It's big enough for everyone. And due to lockdown, the market is only growing. But why do people send cards? Is it usually to provoke an emotion, happiness, birthday, sympathy, or general celebration? People will generally see the image first and then read the text, if there is any. What are you trying to say then, and where does your card fit in the market? It's great being a designer, but if you want to sell in a certain market, then you need to know that market. And licensing is a really important market to get to know. I have another prop. This book here is called the Licensing Source Book. And it's a really, really handy, high-end book of knowledge. Okay, you'll find Hasbro in there, you'll find Kellogg's Cornflakes in there, you'll find Garfield, lots of big name companies. But in this licensing source book and the trade show that accompanies it, they have a stand for illustrators and designers. For greeting card licensing, another good publication is this one, Progressive Greetings. And this will have the people who make the cards that you can put your designs on, and the licensing agents that you can approach to license your work for you. Maybe your designs are just in the category of general birthday. These could be fine art cards, or the buyer knows the person they're sending it to loves cats, and that's what you draw. Either way, a heading to start off with and knowing what you're going to illustrate is key. Size isn't important, but when it comes to making them and the size you need to know, when people are posting them? Is it going to be a small letter size postage or a large letter? The smaller the card, the more you can get printed on a piece of paper. It's worth noting here the size of the envelope too. There are rules of thumb when it comes to envelope sizes, and we'll touch more upon that in a later course. Also, you need to look at the back. The back of the greeting card will allow you to have the information of who's produced the design, who you are, and where you come from. Once a greeting card designer, always a greeting card designer, and you will never look at the front or the back the same. Whenever I'm in a shop, I will pick up a card, and the first thing I do is look at the back. It usually tells you who's designed the card. Most of these from a company called Woodman-Stern are licensed designs, which is an interesting note to say. So you've done all the hard work and you now want to sell them for some money. You have bills to pay. Do you charge VAT? Will you give a discount for bulk buy? These answers will match the questions of who you are selling to. Are you selling your designs and your cards direct through places like Etsy, craft fairs, or friends and family? Or do you want to sell to gift shops and supermarkets? The answer to these questions will determine your price and also the size of the card. Having said all this, maybe you just love producing the work but don't want to sell any cards at all. Maybe you just want to send your work off to H&M, John Lewis's, and have those people do all the work whilst you sit back and collect the monies. Well, if that sounds more like you, then licensing is for you. Again, you must do your research before you start designing. Who is the card for and what are you trying to say? What category will you fit in? When you consider licensing, you always retain the copyright to that work. You are only granting a license for them to use it and for a certain amount of time. You can license the same piece of artwork over several different markets. For example, you might produce patterns that work well on greeting cards and giftware, so you get double payments. But how do you get into licensing? Who do you contact? Where can you find them? Well, as Sam was saying, if she wants to run some more courses, we can cover that in more depth on a later course, and in that course, we can probably point you in a direction of some of the clients at names and phone numbers, well, not phone numbers, email, that you can then contact. One thing I have found with licensing is that there is a way to approach people and there is a way to send your work in. And if you don't get that right, it's different for everybody, but there's a general theme. And if you don't get that right, you A, won't get responded to, and B, it might not even make it past the spam filter. So for the hows and whys and whos later, we can go into that in more depth. Licensing typically pays around 5% royalties. And although that doesn't sound a lot, if your design is really popular and sells 100,000, then you'll have to do the maths because I'm not very good at maths. It's a lot of money. Another way of licensing is to take a one-off fee, typically around 250 to 300 pounds. Well, that's great. You do 12 designs and again, you do the maths, but that's not too bad. But we'll get the drinks in a bit. There is a bit of a snag. If you decide to go with a licensing agent who will get you some of the best work that they can, they will take up to 30% or maybe a bit more. But you must remember is that you don't have access to those clients yourself, and they will do the calls, collect the money, put your work forward, etc., etc. So they are definitely worth their fees. And you'll get more money per license because they know what they're talking about and the client knows that. Another pro with licensing is there is no outlay apart from you and your talent and a bit of electricity and maybe some coffee. You will, as you said before, have to do research. Get out and travel to trade shows, see what other people are doing, learn from them and where they spend their money. Trade shows are great for getting out and meeting people and networking. If you want to find any type of licensed work, a trade show is a very good free way of doing that. Well, you have to pay for travel to get there, but generally the entrance is free. Remember to get some simple business cards printed with your contact details on and a small sample of your work maybe. Don't be afraid to hand them out to greeting card manufacturers or giftware manufacturers. A digital portfolio is great to have with you too. There are certain times to approach people at trade shows and certain times not to approach people at trade shows, as they are trying to sell to clients themselves. I know this is only a short intro into greeting cards and licensing, and I won't have answered all of your questions. Hopefully in the next course, we can cover more in-depth things like where and how to find an agent, how to send your work to a design team, how to manufacture greeting cards, if that's what you want to do, and how to add value to your work. That's the end of my intro into license. I'm sorry about the few stumbles I made. It's quite difficult talking with no response back because Sam's turned her microphone off.
No, that was absolutely great.
That's better.
So yes, feel free to chuck your questions in the chat or raise your hand if you want to ask anything. If I could start off, actually, I had just a question off the back of something you just said. I know you're going to go into more detail about this later, but in terms of like kind of finding agents and things like that, and the trade shows being kind of a good start point, I gather you would kind of count the Progressive Greetings event in that. I think I've put the right link.
Yes. Yeah. Progressive Greetings. They did a trade show. I think it was in July, end of July, at the Business Design Centre in London. I mean, if greeting cards is your thing and that's what you want to go into, whether you produce them yourself or whether you license your designs to greeting card producers, it's a brilliant show to go to, because although there are lots of other trade shows in the country, mainly at the NEC, and the other ones are in London at, not Earls Court because that's been knocked down, Olympia. The Progressive Greetings is predominantly for greeting card designers, and there are a couple of art licensing agents that take stands there as well. That's a really good show to go to. Like I said, the other ones are very general, and unless you know what you're doing at the NEC, I mean, it can be really quite daunting, really. List the trade shows. Yeah, so we've got Progressive, it's called PG Live. PG Live.
I think I put one in the chat for, I think that's it, the Progressive Greetings Live. It looks like they've got the next one, the 7th and 8th of June, 2022.
Yeah. So there will be the autumn, you'll have to excuse my spelling if I spell anything wrong, autumn fair at the NEC. That is a general giftware fair. I mean, I don't know much about clothing, apparel and stuff like that direct to H&M, but I do know that their scouts will go out and about. They'll go to the autumn fair and they will look for people who manufacture their own items, be that ceramics, giftware, paper, wrapping paper, note, stationery. They will look for things that they like, and then they will take a ream back and they'll give it to their design team. For H&M, it's really quite difficult to be able to get to them direct. Whereas if you were approached by somebody like John Lewis's, they wouldn't dream of taking anybody else's design. You know, they would commission you to do something. But a big fashion house, I'm not suggesting H&M itself, but they're quite prone to borrowing people's designs without asking. So, you know, just be slightly wary about that. The other one is the Spring Fair at the NEC, and that takes up 19 halls. It is huge. Yeah, it's a really big trade show. Obviously, there are ones in Scotland as well, but I don't travel up that far. So yeah, did that answer your question? Oh, that answered somebody's question. Yes, trade shows.
And in terms of, I know you said that obviously a lot of the people who are kind of at these trade shows, they've spent quite a bit of money on hiring out the stands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So is it kind of etiquette wise, is it best to have something you can kind of just leave with them, like a leave behind, rather than kind of going there to sort of have a full on chat with them? Is it sort of like, you know, here's my business card and a little sample of my work, it would be great to hear from you at some point later?
Yeah, I think people who manufacture themselves are always open to seeing new ideas, especially if it's not something that they've seen before. So if you're a pattern designer and you produce some, let's say you've got some Christmas designs, you know, you're best to go and look for people who produce Christmas designs, be that on wrapping paper, greeting cards, or 3D. And like I said, take a business card with a sample of your work, maybe on the back of it, or just a photocopied sheet, not photocopied, a color printed sheet is adequate, you know, and say, hi, I'm Claire, I'm just coming around to give you some stuff. If you've got time, I'll have a look, you know, is it okay if I pop back? And usually that gives them a time to look at it and go, oh, I really like that, but they might be busy with customers, or it's not really my thing, I won't be here when she gets back, you know. So yeah, a quick intro at the beginning with a preference to circling around the trade show and then going back later, you know. But people are quite amiable when it comes to licensing, you know.
And in terms of obviously, you know, getting that kind of 5% commission as well, you kind of obviously want those bulk orders. So how do you sort of tap into the trends that are happening? Is it literally by just kind of going into stores and seeing what is being sold and kind of picking up from there, or is there any other places you would recommend for kind of keeping tabs on any trends coming through like that?
Bev Cunningham, she used to be an art director for a company called Abacus, and she will put design trends up on her Creative Card Collective, it's called. If I put creative _card collective, again, sorry for the spelling mistakes. Oh, that one looks all right. She will post design trends and things like that. But if you go into shops and see what the design trends are, you're too late because they're already there. So what you kind of need to be looking for is your own style. Your own style is really important. That's, I think, key. And then what will happen is 3 or 4 people's style will come together at the same time, and that's what almost creates the design trend. You know, so if we look at your picture that you've got in the background, is a watercolored fern, you know, leaf. Plants are massive. I mean, you can't go wrong drawing plants. That trend will probably continue for a while, but something like meerkats, it's been and gone. So there's no point doing meerkats anymore. You know, cats themselves seem to be going a long way. They went longer than dogs went. You know, things like that you can be safe on, but it has to be your style, and it has to be the way that you work. There's no point drawing somebody else's stuff because you lose your uniqueness, and then I think you start to lose your confidence after a while, and people want to see something new. So I'd go and look at the Creative Card Collective. We get design briefs from high street stores in the greeting card industry because we belong to licensing agents. So we've got high street stores 2022's Christmas brief, which obviously is confidential. But that's something that's quite interesting when you join an agency as well, because you will get the trend forecasts. There's a lot, I think, comes through from Pantone as well in the States. You know, they'll have a color forecast, and I think there's something called the Trend Bible. But I mean, see if you can get a free copy, because I think it's £150 a book. It's ridiculous, you know. So yeah, Google some of that will come up. Yeah, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. And we've got a question in the chat from Yumi. She's asking, how do you manage your regular work with your freelance career?
Well, Yumi, I'm quite lucky because I run an Airbnb. So I have clients that come in 4 o'clock in the afternoon and check out at 10 o'clock in the morning. So that's my regular work. There's no shame in saying that if you, unless you were fantastically lucky and you were, I don't know, let's say Oliver Jeffers, or I can't think of anybody else, some other really big illustrator, that you can possibly make a absolutely banging career out of this, financial wise. But the question, I think what you've said is quite interesting. I have regular work and I also have a freelance career, and my freelance career is I put it around my regular work because obviously that's my main source of income. But my freelance career, sometimes I'll be incredibly busy, and then other times we have peaks and troughs, you know. But my speciality is Christmas. I draw lots of Christmas. So I'm busy all year round. We have quite a lot of work that comes in from the States as well. And, you know, then clients will send the artwork back with amendments that they want. So, yeah, and most of my work's digital. So, you know, that's quite interesting. There's sort of a bit of a mixture in the two.
Great. And Suraj is asking, are there any trend analysis websites for research purposes?
Apart from Pantone, I think over in the States, I'm not aware of any others. I'm sure there are, but I think most of them you have to pay for, because it's what the buyers of John Lewis's will go to find out what the trend forecast is. But it all comes from this, I think it's called the Trend Bible that I said you have to pay for. And then they go overseas, or well, we used to go overseas to China, to lots of the trade fairs over there, and you'd see what the manufacturers were making. But you know, the lead time on that is 18 months before you've got your designs right, and then you have to do on basically 6 months shipping. Sorry, Freudian slip.
That was a dangerous
yeah
one.
Sorry about that. So, you know, trend forecast it's a bit of a sticky wicket, and I think they tend to stick to companies that they can pay dollars to tell them what they should be doing, if that makes any sense, you know, rather than trying to find their own. A lot of our trends will filter down from fashion houses as well, you know, colors, patterns, textures, that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously you're not going to see anybody walking around with Gemma Coral cats on a Paris haute couture, you know, but some of the design trends for furnishings and soft furnishings and things like that on licensing will come from you know, the States.
And does your agent help you out with that kind of knowledge as well? Do you have sort of regular catch-ups with them?
Yeah, so once a month we get sent a newsletter that will say she's been asked by clients for a particular amount of, I don't know, polar bears seem to be quite popular at the moment. That's what I seem to be drawing. So, you know, she'll say that she's short for polar bears, or general greeting cards, you know, they'd be looking for something specific. So birthday candles were quite a big thing a couple of months back. So it's worth trying to get a licensing agent. And again, there's a certain way to approach licensing agents. They are incredibly busy, and they get an awful lot of people trying to take their work. You know, so again, if at a later date we could cover that more in depth, specifically how to target an agency. But you know, you have to kind of remember that they are people as well. And all right, they're on the other side of a screen, but they're not unapproachable. It's just that you can't find any of them at trade shows, unfortunately, because they don't take stands like a greeting card. You know, you have to look specifically for the licensing people. And again, at trade shows, everybody's trying to sell to everybody, so you know, there's a time to approach them. But yeah.
Paul is asking, in your opinion, if I am a fashion illustrator, do you think that I could license my illustrations somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, fashion illustration, you know, is a I think is a growing market. And again, I know I'd bring this back to greeting cards, but greeting cards are so versatile. You know, you go into John Lewis's or WH Smith or Asda's, somewhere like that, you can buy a greeting card with a pig on it, a cat on it, you know, a bird that says happy birthday. They don't necessarily have to say happy birthday, sorry, your cat died, you know, retirement. So the fashion illustrations, Paula, that you produce could be licensed for greeting cards, for gift stationery. You know, I'm not sure if your illustrations are pattern based or if they're a silhouette with clothes on, but you'll find that there are certain greeting card companies that would suit really well. You know, probably Woodman Stern wouldn't take them because they're more traditional. They like flowers and birds and plants and that sort of stuff. But a more contemporary greeting card company would probably be interested in something like that, you know. So yeah, absolutely. And if they make it onto greeting cards and they do well, the company will then probably roll it out to stationery. So they'll do a notebook, or they might do gift wrap for it as well. So you get a whole series of work, and that's where the money starts to add up, because you go across multiple platforms, you see. And paper products are generally easier to work on for licensing because lots of those are manufactured in the UK. So obviously we have printing presses, etc. Whereas if you're trying to make, I don't know, 800 meters of material, it has to be manufactured abroad because it's generally too expensive, and then you've got postage time and, you know, delivery time. So yeah, I think they'd work really well on stationery. Do I need to watermark my watermark? I mean, you can do, but I think if you've researched the people that you're sending your artwork into, you'll know whether they're the type of company that you need to watermark. And to be honest with you, a good designer would be able to take that watermark off. And if they're going to copy your work, then they'll copy your work. And it's not that, this is only my personal opinion, I don't think it would prevent anybody from stealing your artwork. They might just give it to a studio hand and say, we really like this, can you do us something like this? But if you've done your research, you'll know that that's not the company you just sent it into in the first place. And if I see watermarked artwork, I said it right then, generally it puts me off, because you're looking at the watermark instead of the artwork. We've all, well, I don't know if we've all done it, but lots of us have taken a hit on artwork, and you know, again, that's another subject to sort of cover for plagiarism and things like that at a later stage, you know. But maybe watermark it. Can you explain on 3D printed gift markets in the UK and who are the current biggest sellers? I would like to start a business around 3D gifts. Okay, right. That's an interesting question. So obviously, when I talk about 2D and 3D, 2D is paper product. That's kind of our terminology. 3D would be anything other than paper. So I would say some of the biggest people, oh my Lord, if you're talking about giftware, who would be, so you have a company called Two's Company. They're quite big. You will have to be careful with big companies. There's so many people looking at so many different designs that you can sometimes just get completely lost. I mean, if you're going to set your own business up in 3D gifts, I wouldn't even give a second thought to who the biggest ones are, because, you know, you just put them to the side. You'd never be able to compete with them because they have all their stuff manufactured abroad. and it's being shipped in, you know, as we speak. I mean, a lot of them have come unstuck at the moment because of COVID. Of course, the supply chains were all, they all went down because we couldn't get anything out of China. But, you know, I would be happy to help you a bit more about 3D gifts at a later stage if you want some, if you wanted some help with that, you know, manufacturing and where you could get it done in the UK. Yeah, that would be good, you know, if you were interested. So yeah, the biggest sellers, I wouldn't even bother with those. Can you write down the company you mentioned in the meeting that is good to send any artwork? Well, I think probably with that question, what we'll do is we'll cover that at a later stage, because you only get one shot with these companies, and there's no point sending the artwork in if you don't know how to send it in. So I think probably that we'll cover in a body of work later, if that's all right. Yeah, does that sound all right with you, Sam?
Yeah. I was actually going to ask, in your opinion, when you're, I guess, you know, if you have kind of an online presence with your work, so if you have a portfolio out there on Behance, or even your own kind of, you know, Instagram account, things like that. I noticed on your Instagram before, you kind of said that you were a person that liked drawing cows, was it?
I draw buses. I draw an occasional bus. No, I haven't drawn a bus in my life. I draw an occasional bus. Well, it's just sort of to, you know, give a point of interest. You know, it's something that you've remembered and you've asked me about, you know. So people like interesting people, and I try and make myself slightly interesting. Humor's my disguise for my lack of knowledge of certain things, so I just tell jokes, and some not very good ones.
I mean, is it like, because you're saying about obviously developing your own style and things like that, I mean, obviously you've got to be aware of trends and things that are, you know, selling at the end of the day, but you know, should you kind of predominantly stay true to what you enjoy drawing and almost kind of have a bit more of like a spread of that kind of stuff, so you've almost got kind of like themes or ranges within your work?
Yeah, I mean, I was reading something that I think it was Creative Review sent around the other week on email, and they said to try and develop your style. You know, it's what you like drawing in certain, maybe certain colors that you use, or you use a certain type of line work, but then different subjects. So, you know, my thing is color. I like to be able to draw trees blue instead of, you know, brown and green, and I like to draw the sky, you know, it's pink. So when you look at my work, there's a color theme that runs through it. You know, they're bright, they're bold, they're not the colors they should be, and that's quite interesting. And of course, that's your signature. Again, coming back to that print that's on your wall, there'll be quite a few, there'll be hundreds of people who will have that particular style, that watercolor style, and none of them will be able to stand out. You won't be able to pick any of them out because they all look very similar. Whereas possibly the other side of you, the typewriter, it's a little bit more quirky. It might be done by somebody who's got a particular style. Maybe they just use pen and ink. So, you know, there's a point of difference. If you go and look at somebody called Dan Hillier? Has anybody heard of him? He did an album cover for, oh dear, some band. But if you go and look at his stuff, it might not be how you spell his surname. You'll see he cuts up lots of Victorian, I can't think what you call it, not Etch-a-Sketch. Etchings, that's it. He cuts up lots of Victorian etchings and puts them together and makes really weird pictures with them, and they're brilliant. And that's his style. That's him. And you know, I think it is Dan Hillier, you know exactly what you're looking at, you know. He did an album cover for Royal Blood, I think it was, their first album. But again, you know, if you like drawing cats, then you draw cats, and you will find somebody who will take your work. Failing that, do it yourself. You know, if you believe strongly enough in your work, the other way to get into licensing is do what you do first and do what you like doing, and then people will come to you. You know, it might be that you're ahead of the trends and people haven't caught up with you yet. You know, it might take you 18 months, it might take you 8 months, it might take you 2 years, but that's your process that you're going to go through to licensing. You might decide that you don't want a license, that you want to do it yourself. You want to create your designs, and you want to, like the other person was saying in the chat, you're going to set your own company up and you're going to make your own products, and then you're going to sell your own products. And that's great. I mean, that's hard work. I've done it a few times, but you know, if you're successful at it and you've got a niche, then people will come to you for your work. They'll want to see what you do, you know, and that can be really quite elevating. You know, when somebody approached me about some of my work, I was quite proud of all the work I put in had finally paid off. So yeah. Can I use reference?
Yeah, Yumi's asking, can I use reference, which I've taken a photo of as my inspiration for my artwork? Do you know any free reference on the internet, such as unsplash.com?
I think, yeah, you can use reference photos. I don't know if you're talking about photo montage or whether you're talking about the photos that you're then just going to draw reference from. But I think as soon as you've taken the photo, I'm right in saying that that's your copyright. It's not the subject matter that matters. You are the owner of the photo if you've taken the photo. But if you're drawing from photographs, that's absolutely fine. The more photographs you can take yourself, the better, because nobody else has got that photo. You know, if you're looking at taking a photograph of people sitting at a cafe because you want to draw people sitting in a cafe, take the photograph. You know, you've got an iPhone or a phone with a camera on. You know, that's what you should be doing, is collecting images. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I think if you're using the actual photos in more of a collage style, maybe, then yeah, you do need to be aware that obviously you might need to purchase the rights. Yeah, just be aware of copyright. I mean, even Unsplash, you still need to mention the source, I think, on those, even though they are free in the small print. I think you still there are still obligations that you need to meet, so just be careful with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know the specific ins and outs of that one. I mean, that's a different type of licensing, that one. Talia, when you license, do you expect does that be credited?
To be credited, I think.
I have an experience before where my work was used and paid for, but she claimed, oh, she designed it herself. Is this something I have to specify in my contract? Bugger. That's not very good, is it? Well, I wouldn't have had that. I hope you got paid the amount that you should have got paid for, but no, she should not have passed the work off as her own unless you had signed a contract that she bought the artwork. If she buys the artwork outright, then well, again, she shouldn't pass it off. You just don't even say it's yours. You know, that's not what you do. But no, did you sign a contract? And in the contract, did it say, you know, we'll credit you? Because sometimes people don't, because they don't want other people to think that they didn't do it, if that makes any sense, which sounds to me like what this lady's done here. But yeah, you know, it's nice to be credited. I mean, I do work for a high street client, and I know up front that it's own brand. So they use my work and they don't credit me because it's an own brand product. But that's set up front to start off with, you know.
Is that factored into the cost, the price that you charge as well, if that's the case? License agreement.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, if you think about it, for a company, let's take Woodman Stern. Okay, I'm going to show you the back of the card again in a minute. So Woodman Stern, without their designers, are a company that produce greeting cards with no designs on. That's predominantly what they do. So it's in their interest, when they do the back of a greeting card, is that back to front on your screen?
No, that's right.
So this range is called Harmony, and it's produced by a girl called, can you see Clare Hocking? Yeah. So, and Woodman Stern, this is the company that makes them, Woodman Stern. So go and Google those. You know, they are a company that you can send work into. But again, I'd possibly wait until we do the course on how to approach clients, because if you don't know what you're talking about licensing, they won't even entertain you, because like the lady was saying, you know, do you expect to be credited, and how much you're going to be paid, and what are the terms, and what contract do you have? That they're easy to sort out, you know, they're all really easy things, but you need to know those before you approach the clients, because if they turn around and go, oh, we really like that, can you do me 6 and we'll pay you £200 per doodah? Well, is it a UK license? Is it a overseas license? Is it worldwide? How long's the license last for? When does it start? You know, these are all questions that you need to know sort of before you then go on to selling the designs that you've got.
Oh, Talia says, thank you. It was my first experience, so I definitely learned from it. Are there any good websites or resources where I can build myself a good contract or check my current one over?
Yeah, so if you go to, well, again, it depends what field you're going into, but so actually, I can't answer Talia's question because I don't know what she did her work in. So I can't direct her to so if it was greeting cards, it would be, they're called the GCA, the Greeting Card Association. But it's a fee-paying site, so you join, but you get access to printers, bits about licensing, where to sell your cards, how to sell your cards. That's our industry body. So if you're part of the GCA, GCA, then you know, that's pretty good. So if Talia was doing greeting cards, then she could go there and have a look. But like I said, I'm not sure what she did, what this artwork was that she did for this other lady. And then the person above Talia has said, what are the most common themes in greeting cards? General birthday. Always, always, always general birthday. So, you know, you can put anything on a birthday card. It can be a candle, it could be a birthday cake, it could be a shoe, it could be a cat, dog, frog, bog. I mean, the list is endless for general birthdays, you know, and they could be funny, they could be cutesy, they could be watercolor, they could be digital. Go into a shop and go and have a look at the greeting cards. And the amount of times you'll be able to point at one and say, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. I could do one of those as well. And then, you know, write them down, write the subject matters down, and go home and do your version of them, of a cake, of a rainbow cake, of a cupcake, of a wedding cake, a cheesecake, a cat, a dog, a frog, you know, and then start putting them all together for a range, which we'll talk about another time. Gone off track.
Yumi's asking, do I need to write my own contract when I sell my artwork to the company and the client? I guess you should have a template, right? And then
yeah, you should have some kind of contract. If you go, I know the Creative Card Collective have just set up, again, it's fee paying, but I mean, Bev doesn't charge a huge amount of money. If you go and speak to Bev at the Creative Card Collective, Bev has templates of contracts and whys, hows, wheres, whats, you know, the proper in-depth stuff. I don't get too involved in that specifically because my licensing agent does it for me. But if you want to do lots of contracts yourself, one-to-one, then Bev is, for the Creative Card Collective, is absolutely worth going to, you know. there's lots of free information that she posts on Facebook. It's on Instagram as well. And like I said, she's just started a fee paying basis for information, stuff like that there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One thing I wanted to ask as well, did getting an agent, was that a bit of a kind of game changer for you? I mean, what kind of phase, what kind of point in your career should you think about getting an agent? Is it something you should try getting your own work first and then get an agent, or would you say try and look for one straight away?
I think it depends on the individual. You've got to be, I think one thing I've learned, you've got to be comfortable with your work, because there are a lot of people out there that are going to say, no, it's not for me. No, I don't like it. No, it won't fit our style. And, every time you hear a no, well, it happens to me, I don't know about you guys, but, you start off here on the confidence level, and then there's a no, and there's a no, and then there's a no. But by the time you finish, you think, oh, my work's shit. I should just give it up. I should go into Airbnb full time, but I love doing this. I love my work. I love the people I meet, and then you absolutely have to talk yourself back round. But an agent isn't the be all and end all. And at what stage in your career you decide and it's not that you need one, it's that they're going to help you. Okay, they're going to earn some money out of it, but they put in a fair amount of work anyway. You might decide that you can do without one for 6 months, and you put 6 months worth of work in, and you're not going to get any clients, or you haven't got any clients. So you might decide that you could go and get one there, and they could help you with that. Or you might approach one client and then everything goes stratospheric, and this particular client, they do greeting cards, they do gift wrap, they do everything, and your one design that you've sent in has worked, and off you go. So I mean, that's, I think, is on an individual basis, but you have to be comfortable with your work first, because if they tell you to start changing it, maybe you should do this, or maybe you should do that, that's where you turn around and say, maybe you're not the agent for me. Because once you start to change your work, it's not you, it becomes something else. It's all very well them saying, well, can you draw me an elephant? You say, yeah, fine. Or I want a range of shoes, that's not a problem. But if they turn around and start saying, yeah, I don't quite like that bit, or I not quite like that bit, that's, you just say, well, okay, maybe it's not working.
And how does the relationship work? I gather, is it, they get paid when you get paid kind of thing, or do you?
Yeah. So they send out invoices to their clients. They usually give their clients, or they can give their clients up to 3 months to pay. That's 3 months. Most clients pay quicker, but some clients pay a lot slower, especially if they take a bigger order. And then they will pay you directly minus their commission fee. But they've had to travel to meetings, they've had phone calls, they've had video calls. I mean, my agent's she's going over to the Las Vegas, which I did say I'd go, but she said no. She's going to the Las Vegas licensing show, I think, when is it, January or something like that. So she'll take all our work with us, everybody she represents, and she's out there selling our work, because if she sells us, she gets paid, So yeah, you do get paid. I've worked for a couple of clients directly that just haven't paid, and sometimes there's not a busting lot you can do about it.
No, I guess it's that kind of a small claims court job.
Oh, it's not, for the £200-300, it's not even worth the aggro, because they won't, if they're not going to pay it, they won't pay it, and you'll just end up spending more money trying to get the money that they should have paid you in the first place.
Cool, fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Claire. It's been really insightful, lots of little nuggets in there. Yeah, there's definitely, I think the questions have been great as well, so I think there's a lot there that we can kind of take away and maybe develop in more of like a course as well, that will kind of like be able to kind of really focus in on specific kind of points, because it's quite hard to do that in, you know, an hour chat really. But yeah, we'd definitely like to explore this a little bit more, and maybe going to more the 3D side as well, as you were saying. So yes, thank you so much everyone for coming. Thank you for all your questions. Really hope you've learned something from today's chat. Please do follow Claire on Instagram. I've put her details up for Instagram and LinkedIn, and also for Tern Heads as well. Please tell your friends, get them to come along to some of the takeovers as well. And yeah, if there's anything else that you'd love to kind of hear from us, then do let us know on social media, and otherwise we will see you at the next Student Takeover.